The day my boss threw me under the bus to save his spoiled son's career, I made a promise to myself that would change everything. But before I tell you how I brought down the man who destroyed my life, let me take you back to where it all started. Because what happened next will shock you, and by the end of this story, you'll understand why sometimes the best revenge is success itself. My name is Knox, and 3 years ago, I was the star employee at Pinnacle Marketing Solutions. I lived and breathed that company. 60-hour weeks were normal for me. I ate lunch at my desk, answered emails at midnight, and turned down weekend plans because I was always chasing the next big client. My boss, Mr. Thorne, used to call me his golden boy. He'd pat my shoulder and say, "Knox, you're the reason this company keeps growing." Those words meant everything to me back then. I thought I was building something special. For 5 years, I poured my heart into that place. I brought in their biggest clients. I trained new employees. I created systems that saved them thousands of dollars. When other companies tried to steal me away with better offers, I stayed loyal. Pinnacle was my home. Then everything changed when Thorne's son, Gage, graduated from college. Gage was 22, fresh out of school, and had never worked a day in his life. His dad bought him a BMW for graduation and promised him a leadership role at the company. The day Gage walked into our office, I knew my life was about to get complicated. He was tall, cocky, and wore expensive suits that probably cost more than my monthly rent. His first week, he spent more time taking selfies for his social media than actually working. But Thorne treated him like he was the second coming of business genius. "Gage has fresh ideas," Thorne would say during meetings. "We need young blood to take us to the next level." I tried to be welcoming. I really did. I offered to train Gage, show him the ropes, help him understand our clients. But he brushed me off like I was nothing. "I don't need help from someone who's been doing the same job for years," he said with a smirk. "I'm here to shake things up." That should have been my first warning sign. The problems started small. Gage would take credit for my ideas in meetings. He'd interrupt me when I was presenting to clients. He'd forget to include me in important emails. When I tried to talk to Thorne about it, he'd wave me off. "You're being too sensitive, Knox. Gage is just enthusiastic. Give him space to grow." But things got worse, much worse. Our biggest client, Meridian Industries, was up for contract renewal. I'd been working with them for 3 years. They trusted me. Their CEO, Mrs. Chen, specifically requested that I handle their account because she valued my expertise. The contract was worth $2 million. It was the biggest deal of my career, and I'd spent months preparing the presentation. I knew every detail, every number, every angle that would make them say yes. The night before the presentation, I was in the office until 2 a.m. making sure everything was perfect. My slides were flawless. My pitch was tight. I was ready to seal the deal that would secure my promotion to senior manager. But when I walked into the conference room the next morning, Gage was standing at the front, holding my presentation materials. "Morning, Knox," he said with that same smirk. "Thanks for all the prep work. I'll take it from here." My blood ran cold. "What are you talking about?" "This is my client. My presentation." Thorne cleared his throat. "There's been a change of plans. We decided Gage should take the lead on this one. It's time for him to step up." I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. "Mr. Thorne, with all due respect, Mrs. Chen specifically asked for me. She doesn't even know Gage." "She'll get to know him," Thorne said firmly. "This is final." I watched in horror as Gage stumbled through my presentation. He mispronounced the client's name. He got the budget numbers wrong. He couldn't answer basic questions about their industry. Mrs. Chen looked confused and disappointed. But the worst part? When she asked to speak with me privately, Thorne stepped in. "Actually, Mrs. Chen, Knox is transitioning to a different role. Gage will be your primary contact moving forward." The meeting was a disaster. Mrs. Chen left without signing the contract. 2 weeks later, she called to say Meridian Industries was taking their business elsewhere. $2 million. Gone. Because Thorne wanted to give his son a chance to play boss. I thought that was rock bottom, but I was wrong. A week after we lost the Meridian account, Thorne called me into his office. I expected him to be upset about losing such a big client. Instead, he was smiling. "Knox, I've been thinking about your career path here at Pinnacle." My heart jumped. Maybe he was finally going to promote me. Maybe he realized how valuable I was after seeing what happened with Gage and Meridian. "I'm creating a new position for you," he continued. "Assistant Marketing Coordinator." I blinked. Assistant Marketing Coordinator? That's 3 levels below my current position. "It's a fresh start," he said, not meeting my eyes. "A chance to learn new skills." "Learn new skills?" "Mr. Thorne, I've been here for 5 years. I brought in 60% of our clients. "The decision is final," he said coldly. "Your new salary will be $45,000. $45,000? I was making $78,000. They were cutting my pay by almost half. "This is about Gage, isn't it?" I said quietly. "You're pushing me out to make room for your son." Thorne's face hardened. "Gage is a valuable addition to our team. He brings fresh perspective and energy. Maybe if you spent less time complaining and more time adapting, you'd see the opportunities here." I stared at him, this man I'd respected for years, who was now treating me like I was disposable. "And if I don't accept this demotion?" "Then you're free to find other opportunities," he said with a shrug. "But I should mention, I've been contacted by several companies asking for references. I'd hate to have to tell them about your recent performance issues." Performance issues. I'd never had a single negative review in 5 years, but I understood the threat. He was going to sabotage my references if I didn't play along. I had 2 choices: take the demotion and watch Gage get credit for everything I'd built, or quit and risk being blacklisted in the industry. "I need time to think about it," I said. "You have until tomorrow." That night, I sat in my apartment staring at the city lights, feeling more alone than I'd ever felt in my life. I'd given everything to Pinnacle. I'd sacrificed relationships, hobbies, sleep, my health. And for what? To be tossed aside the moment the boss's son wanted my job? I thought about my father, who'd always taught me that hard work and loyalty would pay off. I thought about all the friends who'd warned me that companies don't care about employees. I'd always defended Pinnacle, always believed I was different, that I was valued. But as I sat there in the dark, I realized something that changed everything. They were right. I was disposable. To Thorne, to Gage, to everyone at Pinnacle, I was just a number on a spreadsheet. Someone who could be replaced, demoted, or discarded whenever it was convenient. But here's what they didn't know about me. I didn't just work in marketing. I studied it. I lived it. I understood every single thing that made Pinnacle successful because I'd built most of it myself. Their client relationships? I'd nurtured them. Their marketing strategies? I'd created them. Their reputation in the industry? I'd earned it for them. They thought they were throwing me away, but they were actually setting me free. The next morning, I walked into Thorne's office with my decision. "I'll take the demotion," I said calmly. He looked surprised. "Really? I thought you might." "Well, I'm glad you're being reasonable about this." "I'm being very reasonable," I said. "When do I start?" "Monday. And Knox, I think you'll find this change is for the best. Sometimes we all need to be reminded of our place. My place. As if I'd ever forgotten that I was the one who'd built his company while he took credit." "You're absolutely right, Mr. Thorne," I said with a smile. "Sometimes we do need to be reminded of our place." But as I walked out of his office, I wasn't thinking about my place at Pinnacle. I was thinking about my place in the world. And I realized it wasn't in someone else's company, taking orders from a man who'd betray me to boost his son's ego. My place was building something of my own. That weekend, I did something I'd never done before. I spent every waking hour researching, not marketing strategies for Pinnacle, but business plans for myself. I looked up LLC filings, business licenses, office spaces, competitors, suppliers. By Sunday night, I had a complete business plan for my own marketing company. I called it Sterling Solutions. Sterling, because I was going to prove my worth, was precious metal, not disposable plastic. But here's where it gets interesting. Remember how I mentioned I knew everything about Pinnacle's business? Well, I also knew about the empty office space right next door to them. It had been vacant for months, and the rent was cheap because the building was old. Old, but functional. And most importantly, it shared a wall with Pinnacle's office. I could hear everything that went on in their conference room. Monday morning, I started my new role as assistant marketing coordinator. I smiled at Gage when he walked past my tiny new desk. I said good morning to Thorne when he arrived. I did my reduced job duties without complaint. But every lunch break, every evening, every weekend, I was next door, building Sterling Solutions. I soundproofed one wall of my new office, but I left the other wall untouched, the one that connected to Pinnacle's main conference room. I could hear every client meeting, every strategy session, every conversation about upcoming projects, and I used every piece of information I heard to stay one step ahead. When I heard them planning to pitch a local restaurant chain, I reached out to that chain first. When I overheard Gage struggling with a proposal for a tech startup, I sent my own proposal to the same company. When Thorne mentioned wanting to expand into the healthcare market, I was already building relationships with medical practices. The beautiful thing was, I knew exactly what Pinnacle's weaknesses were. I knew which clients were unhappy. I knew which strategies weren't working. I knew where they were vulnerable. And I used every single piece of that knowledge. Within 3 months, Sterling Solutions had signed its first 5 clients. Small businesses, but they were mine. I was building something real, something that couldn't be taken away by a jealous boss or his spoiled son. The irony wasn't lost on me. While I was being treated like a failure at Pinnacle, I was secretly building the competition right next door. But I was careful. I never used Pinnacle's resources for my own business. I never contacted their clients directly. I never technically broke any rules. I was being entrepreneurial. By month 6, Sterling Solutions was profitable. By month 9, I was making more from my own company than Pinnacle was paying me. And the best part? Nobody at Pinnacle had any idea. I'd arrive at work each morning, smile at my colleagues, do my reduced job duties, and listen to Gage take credit for ideas that I'd actually implemented at my own company first. It was like living a double life, mild-mannered assistant by day, successful business owner by night. But I wasn't ready to reveal my secret yet, because I had a bigger plan. See, I'd been keeping track of Pinnacle's struggles. Ever since Gage had joined the company, they'd been losing clients. The Meridian disaster was just the beginning. Gage's inexperience and Thorne's favoritism were driving away the relationships I'd spent years building. Their revenue was dropping, their reputation was suffering, and I was the only one who could see the whole picture because I was on the inside. I knew it was only a matter of time before they'd be in real trouble, and when that happened, I wanted to be ready. 6 months later, the opportunity I'd been waiting for finally arrived. Thorne called an emergency staff meeting. His face was grim as he stood at the front of the conference room. "Team, I need to be honest with you. We're facing some challenges. Several major clients have chosen not to renew their contracts. Our revenue is down 30% from last year. We need to make some difficult decisions." I sat in the back row, watching Gage shift uncomfortably in his chair. This was the moment I'd been preparing for. "We're going to have to let some people go," Thorne continued. "It's not a reflection of anyone's performance. It's just business." But I knew it wasn't just business. It was consequences. Consequences for choosing nepotism over competence. Consequences for treating loyal employees like disposable resources. Consequences for prioritizing pride over profit. After the meeting, I walked back to my desk and opened my laptop. It was time to put the final phase of my plan into action. I'd been patient. I'd been strategic. I'd built my own success while watching them destroy theirs. Now it was time to show them what they'd lost when they decided I wasn't valuable enough to keep. Sterling Solutions was about to make them an offer they couldn't refuse. 3 days after Thorne's emergency meeting, I was sitting in my real office at Sterling Solutions when my phone rang. It was Mrs. Chen from Meridian Industries. "Knox, I hope you don't mind me calling you directly. I got your number from a mutual contact." My heart started racing. "Of course not, Mrs. Chen. How can I help you?" "Well, I've been following your new company. Very impressive work. I heard you landed the Riverside Healthcare account?" I smiled. Riverside Healthcare was one of the biggest wins Sterling Solutions had secured. A contract worth $1.8 million, almost as much as the Meridian deal that Gage had destroyed. "Yes, we're very excited about that partnership." "I bet you are. Listen, Knox, I'm going to be direct. We made a mistake choosing another agency after that disaster with Pinnacle. Our current marketing team just isn't cutting it. Would Sterling Solutions be interested in taking on Meridian Industries? I nearly dropped the phone. The client that Pinnacle had lost because of Gage's incompetence was coming to me. Coming to my company. Mrs. Chen, I would be honored to work with Meridian Industries again. Wonderful. Can we meet this week? I'd like to discuss a 3-year contract. We're talking about significant expansion, so we're looking at roughly $6 million over the term. $6 million. That was more than Pinnacle's entire annual revenue. After I hung up, I sat back in my chair and looked around my office. What had started as a tiny space next to my former employer had grown into a full floor of a downtown building. I had 12 employees now, all of them talented people who'd been overlooked or undervalued at other companies, just like I had been. But I wasn't done yet. The plan I'd been working toward for over a year was finally ready to execute. The next morning, I walked into Pinnacle for what I knew would be one of the last times. The office looked different now, smaller somehow. Several desks were empty where people had been laid off. The energy that used to buzz through the place was gone. I could hear Thorne and Gage arguing in the conference room. "We can't keep bleeding clients like this," Thorne was saying. "We need to figure out what's going wrong." "It's not my fault," Gage shot back. "These clients just don't understand vision. They want everything to stay the same." I almost laughed. Gage still thought the problem was everyone else. "Son, we've lost 8 major accounts in 6 months. There has to be a reason." "Maybe it's the staff," Gage said. "Some of these people have been here too long. They're stuck in old ways of thinking. Maybe we need fresh blood." Fresh blood, like me, who they'd demoted to make room for him. I was about to head to my desk when I heard something that made me freeze. "Actually, I've been thinking about that," Thorne said slowly. "What if we approached some of our former clients, see if we can win them back?" "Which clients?" "Well, Meridian Industries for one. That was a huge loss. Mrs. Chen was always professional with us. Maybe if we reached out, explained that we've made some changes." My blood started boiling. They wanted to go after my client. The client I'd built a relationship with. The client they'd lost because of their own incompetence. "That's brilliant, Dad. I could lead the pitch. Show them what real innovation looks like." That was it. I'd heard enough. I walked straight to my desk, opened my laptop, and typed out an email that would change everything. Subject: Resignation. Knox Morrison. "Dear Mr. Thorne, please accept this as my formal 2 weeks' notice. My last day at Pinnacle Marketing Solutions will be Friday, March 15th. Thank you for the opportunities you've provided me over the past 5 years. Sincerely, Knox Morrison, Assistant Marketing Coordinator." I hit send and immediately felt a weight lift off my shoulders. Within 5 minutes, Thorne was standing at my desk, holding a printed copy of my email. "Knox, what is this about? If this is about the layoffs, your position is secure." "It's not about the layoffs, Mr. Thorne. I've found a better opportunity." His face went pale. "Better opportunity? Where?" I smiled sweetly. "I'd prefer not to say. You understand." "Now wait just a minute. You have clients here, relationships that took years to build. You can't just walk away from that." The irony was incredible. This was the same man who'd demoted me and tried to give my clients to his son. Now he was worried about me taking relationships away from him. "Actually, Mr. Thorne, I think you'll find that most of my former clients have already moved on. But don't worry, I'm sure Gage can handle whatever's left." I started packing my personal items into a box. There wasn't much. A few photos, a coffee mug, some books. Amazing how little you accumulate when you're just waiting for the right moment to leave. "Knox, let's discuss this rationally. What would it take for you to stay? We could talk about your role, maybe a salary adjustment." "There's nothing to discuss. I've made my decision." Thorne looked desperate now, and I understood why. With everything that had been going wrong at Pinnacle, losing another experienced employee would be devastating. "Is it Sterling Solutions?" he asked suddenly. I froze. "Excuse me?" "Sterling Solutions. The new marketing company downtown. I heard they've been hiring people from other agencies. Is that where you're going?" My heart was pounding, but I kept my voice steady. I'm not sure what you're talking about. They're our biggest competitor now, he continued. Came out of nowhere about a year ago. Whoever's running it knows this market inside and out. They've been winning contracts left and right. Sounds like a successful company, I said neutrally. Too successful. It's like they know exactly what we're going to do before we do it. They're always one step ahead. If only he knew. Well, I hope you figure out how to compete with them, I said, closing my box of belongings. I was almost to the door when Gage appeared, blocking my path. You can't just leave, he said. What about your projects? What about the client files? What projects, Gage? What client files? You took all of those when you took my job, remember? His face turned red. That's not... there are still things that need to be transitioned. I'm sure you'll manage. After all, you're the one with the fresh perspective and new ideas. I stepped around him and walked toward the exit. Behind me, I could hear Thorne and Gage whispering frantically. As I reached the door, I turned back one last time. Oh, and Mr. Thorne? You might want to check your non-compete agreements. I believe they only apply if an employee voluntarily leaves to work for a direct competitor. What's that supposed to mean? It means that being demoted and having my salary cut wasn't exactly voluntary, just something to keep in mind. And with that, I walked out of Pinnacle Marketing Solutions forever. 2 weeks later, I was sitting in Sterling Solutions' main conference room, preparing for the most important meeting of my life. My assistant Dahlia knocked on the door. Mr. Morrison, they're here? Send them in. The door opened, and Thorne walked in, followed by Gage. Their faces were grim, and they looked around the conference room with obvious confusion. Knox? Thorne said slowly. What are you doing here? I smiled and stood up. Gentlemen, welcome to Sterling Solutions. Please, have a seat. Gage's mouth fell open. You work here? Not exactly, I said, walking to the head of the table. I own here. The color drained from both of their faces. You're the owner of Sterling Solutions? Thorne whispered. Founder and CEO, I confirmed. I started this company about 18 months ago, right around the time you decided I wasn't valuable enough to keep in my original position. That's impossible, Gage sputtered. You were working for us this whole time. How could I build a multi-million-dollar company while working as your assistant? Well, Gage, turns out I'm pretty good at multitasking, and I had some excellent intelligence about market opportunities. Thorne's eyes went wide. The office next door. You were listening to our meetings. I was running a business next door. What you chose to discuss loudly in your conference room was your own decision. This is corporate espionage, Gage shouted. This is illegal. I laughed. Actually, it's just good business. I never stole any proprietary information. I never contacted your clients while I was employed by you. I never violated any actual laws. I just paid attention. But why? Thorne asked. And for the first time since I'd known him, he looked genuinely hurt. Why didn't you just come to me? If you were unhappy, we could have worked something out. Worked something out? I repeated. Mr. Thorne, you demoted me to boost your son's ego. You cut my salary by 40%. You threatened to sabotage my references if I didn't accept it. What exactly were we going to work out? He had no answer for that. But that's not why you're here today, I continued. You're here because Pinnacle Marketing Solutions is in trouble. Serious trouble. We're doing fine, Gage said defensively. Are you? Because my information suggests you've lost 60% of your major clients in the past year. Your revenue is down 70%. You've had to lay off half your staff, and you're about 3 months away from bankruptcy. Thorne's shoulders sagged. How do you know all that? Because I know this industry, and because your former employees talk to my employees. Word gets around. I opened a folder on the table, which brings me to why I asked you here today. Sterling Solutions would like to make Pinnacle an offer. What kind of offer? Thorne asked suspiciously. We'd like to acquire your company. The silence in the room was deafening. Acquire us? Gage finally managed to say. That's right. Full acquisition. We'll take over your remaining contracts, absorb your staff, and purchase your client database. In return, we'll pay off your debts and provide both of you with generous severance packages. I slid the contract across the table. The offer is for $1.2 million. Thorne picked up the document with shaking hands. $1.2 million? But the company is worth at least. Worth what, Mr. Thorne? You have no major clients left. Your reputation is damaged. Your revenue is practically non-existent. Honestly, I'm being generous. This is insane, Gage said, standing up. We're not selling to you. We're not selling to anyone. That's your choice, I said calmly. But I should mention that Mrs. Chen from Meridian Industries has agreed to a 3-year contract with Sterling Solutions, $6 million. She specifically requested to work with me again. Thorne's face went white. Meridian was going to be our comeback client. We were planning to pitch them next week. Were you? How interesting. I'm sure they would have been very polite about it. You stole our client, Gage accused. I didn't steal anyone. Mrs. Chen called me. Apparently, she was impressed with Sterling Solutions' work and wanted to discuss a partnership. I can't help it if she preferred us over her previous agency. The room was quiet except for the sound of Thorne turning pages in the contract. There's another option, I said after a moment. If you're not interested in selling, that's fine. But I thought you should know that Sterling Solutions is expanding. We're opening a second location, and we're looking to hire experienced marketing professionals. I reached into my folder and pulled out 2 more documents. Employment contracts, for both of you. Gage laughed bitterly. You want to hire us, after everything that's happened? Why not? Mr. Thorne, you have 20 years of experience in this industry. When you're not playing favorites, you're actually quite good at business development. And Gage, you have energy and enthusiasm. With proper guidance and training, you could become a valuable team member. What positions? Thorne asked quietly. Mr. Thorne, I'm offering you the role of senior account manager. Gage, you'd start as a junior marketing associate. A junior associate? Gage exploded. I'm not working for you. I'm not working under you. That's fine, I said with a shrug. Like I said, it's your choice. Thorne was still reading the employment contract. The salary, $65,000 for you, Mr. Thorne, $38,000 for Gage. Both positions come with performance bonuses, full benefits, and room for advancement based on merit. That's less than I was making at Pinnacle, Gage complained. Gage, Pinnacle is about to go out of business. You'll be making $0 there very soon. The truth of that statement hung in the air like a weight. I need time to think about this, Thorne said finally. Of course. The acquisition offer is good for 72 hours. The employment offers are good for 1 week. I stood up and walked them to the door. Gentlemen, I want you to understand something. This isn't about revenge. This isn't about getting back at you for what happened. This is about business. Then why? Thorne asked. Why offer to buy us out? Why offer us jobs? If this is just business, why not let us fail? I paused at the door. Because despite everything that happened between us, I learned a lot at Pinnacle. Good things and bad things. And I believe that everyone deserves a second chance, even people who didn't give me one. After they left, I sat alone in my conference room, thinking about the journey that had brought me to this moment. 18 months ago, I was a dedicated employee who believed that loyalty and hard work would be rewarded. I trusted my boss. I believed in the company. I thought I was building a career. Then I learned a hard lesson about how expendable employees can be, how quickly loyalty can turn to betrayal when it's convenient. But I also learned something else. I learned that I was stronger than I thought. I learned that I didn't need someone else's company to be successful. I learned that sometimes the best thing that can happen to you is getting pushed out of your comfort zone. 3 days later, Dahlia knocked on my office door again. Mr. Morrison, Mr. Thorne is here to see you. Send him in. Thorne walked in alone this time, carrying a signed copy of the acquisition agreement. We'll take the buyout, he said simply. And the employment offers? He sighed. I'll take the account manager position. Gage decided to try his luck elsewhere. I wasn't surprised. Gage's pride would never let him work for someone he'd looked down on. I think you're making the right choice, Mr. Thorne. Can I ask you something, Knox? Of course. Did you plan all of this from the beginning? The demotion, the company next door, the acquisition? I thought about it for a moment. Honestly, no. When you first demoted me, I was just trying to survive. The company next door was supposed to be a safety net. But as Sterling Solutions grew, and as I watched Pinnacle struggle, I realized I had an opportunity to do something bigger. An opportunity for revenge. An opportunity for justice, I corrected. There's a difference. He nodded slowly. I made a mistake with you, Knox. I let my feelings about my son cloud my judgment. I treated you unfairly, and I'm sorry for that. I appreciate that, Mr. Thorne. I really do. Will you be able to work with me after everything? I smiled. Mr. Thorne, you're going to be working for me. The question is whether you'll be able to adjust to that. He actually laughed at that. I suppose I deserve it. We all deserve second chances, I said. Even bosses who make terrible decisions. 6 months later, Sterling Solutions had officially absorbed Pinnacle Marketing. We'd retained most of the staff, secured the remaining clients, and moved everyone into our main office downtown. Mr. Thorne turned out to be an excellent account manager once he wasn't playing favorites. He brought in several new clients and helped stabilize some of the relationships that had been damaged during Pinnacle's downward spiral. Gage never came back. I heard through industry contacts that he'd tried to start his own agency, but couldn't get it off the ground. He eventually took a job at a small firm in another city. As for me, I was sitting in my corner office, looking out at the city skyline, when Dahlia brought in the morning mail. "Congratulations, Mr. Morrison," she said, handing me an envelope. "You made the list." I opened the envelope and smiled. It was a certificate recognizing Sterling Solutions as one of the fastest-growing companies in the state. The letter mentioned that we'd grown from a one-person startup to a multi-million-dollar agency in less than 2 years. But the real satisfaction wasn't in the award, or the money, or the recognition. The real satisfaction was in proving to myself that I was never as powerless as I'd felt that day in Thorne's office. When someone tries to make you smaller, you have 2 choices. You can shrink to fit their expectations, or you can grow so big that their opinion doesn't matter anymore. I chose to grow. And sometimes, if you're really lucky, growing big enough means you get to buy the company that tried to throw you away. The best revenge isn't getting even. The best revenge is getting ahead. 2 years later, I was featured on the cover of Business Weekly magazine. The headline read, "From Assistant to Acquisition, How One Man Built an Empire Next Door." In the interview, they asked me what advice I'd give to other employees who feel undervalued at their jobs. "Remember that your worth isn't determined by how other people treat you," I said. "It's determined by what you choose to do when you realize your true value." "And what about people who abuse their power over employees?" I smiled. "Well, they should remember that today's assistant might be tomorrow's boss, and tomorrow's boss might just decide to buy their company." The interviewer laughed, but I was completely serious. Because sometimes the best way to climb the corporate ladder is to build your own building. If you enjoy the story, please like and subscribe for more.